Welcome to the Honey Authenticity Showcase. Our team includes the World Bee Project from the UK, the International Centre for Advanced Mediterranean Agronomic Studies, based in Montpellier, and the University of Thessaly in Greece. The honey fraud problem is made more difficult because honey labelling rules are inconsistent across the EU, and because there is currently no single test for honey authenticity. This makes it easy for fraudsters to flood the market with cheap adulterated honeys. We want to create a system to help ensure honey authenticity, but the system needs to be both simple and cheap, so that it can be easily adopted by beekeepers of all sizes. The overall goal is to provide traceability, so that when the consumer buys honey, they know exactly which hives the honey comes from, and exactly what processing has been applied to it. For example, we want consumers to know that if a honey is labeled as a blend of non-EU honeys, then it is likely to contain a mixture of overfiltered honeys adulterated with sugar syrups. At the heart of our solution is a blockchain model, which tracks the honey from the beekeepers to the jars, and provides an overview of the honey production supply chain. However, a lot of honey is harvested by smallholder beekeepers, who have limited access to technology, so it probably isn't practical to try to make the data capture fully automated. So instead, some of the data will be manually uploaded to the blockchain. This should make the system much simpler, but how do we know that the data being uploaded is accurate? This is the second component of the showcase, which uses additional evidence to support the honey supply chain data. Instead of a single test, which must be passed, we will include a range of extra data, which can be used to validate the honey supply chain. This data includes 4 components. The first data component is provided by in-hive sensors, which validate the location and activity of the beehives. These can measure the GPS location of a hive, the health of the bees, as well as the production of honey inside the hive. The second component is a DNA profile of the honey from the hive. The honey will contain traces of DNA from pollen collected by the bees, so this test will provide a profile of the plants near the hive, which have been visited by the bees. Honeys from the same region should return similar profiles, and honey should only include DNA from plants which grow locally to the hives. The third component is a profile of the crops growing in the region around the hive, which can be calculated from satellite data. This should match the DNA data and the hive location. And finally, we will include a chemical test on the honey in the jar at the end of the honey supply chain. This could be a DNA test, but DNA tests are not always reliable with filtered honeys, so is more likely to require an NMR test. NMR tests provide a profile of the chemical components found in the honey, including the concentration and types of sugars found. These profiles should help identify any adulterations which may have been made after the honey has left the hive. The combined data will be used to identify potential anomalies, as well as help build an EU-wide dataset, which will help support the ongoing international efforts to reduce honey fraud. Historically, regulators have relied on chemical testing to identify possible fraud cases. But as the chemical testing evolves, so do the fraudsters, which makes it a very difficult problem to solve. Our approach is different, as we're trying to create a bee-mark honey passport for each honey, which includes multiple data attributes. We will then use anomalies across all of this data to identify potential issues. So while fraudsters might be able to cheat on individual tests, it should be increasingly difficult to cheat across all the components of the honey passport. The passport will also reward simple and short supply chains, rather than complex supply chains involving multiple players. And while we will use a blockchain model, many detailed elements of the honey passport will not be transparently shared. The high-level steps in the hive-to-jar supply chain will be publicly shared, but some detailed test data may remain proprietary. We already have sample data from beekeepers around the EU, and data from other projects related to the World Bee Project's BeeMark eco-label. This summer we hope to extend the showcase to include data from pilot beekeepers in the Occitanie region in France.